Hey guys, today I'm going to show you some of the tips and tricks that I've learned over the years to help you with texturing. This is my first ever tutorial, so bear with me. You can check my screencast keys right here. So I'm going to give you a quick acceptance tour so you can begin. I can Alt and left click to rotate, Alt middle click to pan, and Alt right click to zoom in and zoom out. I can select my brush here or with hotkey 1, my eraser with 2 or hotkey 2, path tool, we won't be touching this for now, the projection tool we will be looking at later, and the polygon fill, smudge and clone, but we're not going to use them now. To change between the views you can click here, switch to 2D 3D view, or just press the F1 key, F2 or F3. So I'm going to stick with 3D view for now. And you can change to orthographic view if you like, but that's just personal preference. I'm going to switch to perspective view. You can bake your textures. If you click here, you can select your output size, and you can choose the anti-aliasing, use high poly meshes, low poly meshes, high poly mesh, or you can import your own high poly mesh. But these textures are already baked, so I don't need to bake them again. I'm going to go back to my painting mode. You can see my texture set list right here. I can click to change between them. I can isolate a selection if I click this eye icon, or I can hide all and show all. Alright, the first one we're gonna look at is to use a edgeware. Now edgeware is mostly used whenever there's some hard surface acid, mostly to show the damage or wear and tear that has happened over the years. So let's take a look. I'm going to switch this to base so we can easily see this. I'm going to isolate this, zoom in. You can see these black spots. This is because the texture has been baked. So this is AO texture, but that's fine, no problem. I'm going to remove my paint layer. I'm going to add a fill layer. I'm going to add a simple, nice color so we can all look at easily. I'm going to add a blue. And then I'm going to add another one. This time a metal. I'm going to switch to silver metal, make it metallic and less rough, or maybe a little bit. Let's say I wanted to have some sort of edgeware. I'm going to right click, add a black mask, go to click my magic wand and add a generator this time. I'm going to add a edgeware. And this is what we have. You can see that edgeware is all over on every single edge. I think this is because it's using a curvature map. You can check your curvature map if you click on here, scroll down, you can see the curvature map. Or you can press B to switch between the baked maps, or press C to switch between your maps that are in the fill layer. If I press M to go back to material, or I can click here, this material. The first one will be to add a bit of height. We're going to go back to our fill layer, dial it down so we have a paint. If you want to remove some of this, you can click on this black mask, click on this magic wand, add a paint layer. And in this paint layer, we're going to select a different brush, maybe a dirt brush, something. If this is white, it's going to add more. And if I press X, just like Photoshop, it's going to flip to black color. Or if I scroll down, you can see that there's a grayscale image. I can plug in an image, or I can just manually change this, or use this button to flip. If I make this black, it's going to remove some of the mask, right? Right now I don't have any reference image, but generally if you have reference image that you're looking at, you can manually add or remove some of the damage, right? Okay, another tip that I'm going to give you is to use stencil. Stencils are really powerful. They give you realistic mask. Let's see. Currently I don't have a good one on me, so I'm going to press F to zoom in on my head. I'm going to add just a blue material so you can easily look at, maybe a light blue. Let's say if I'm going to add something like red, I'm going to add a black mask. Now if I wanted to have a custom mask or a realistic mask, I can use a stencil. I'm going to show you if I have one. You can use any grayscale image that you want. Alright, I'm going to look for the one I think I imported. I think it's called Streaks, I think, which is this one. So I'm going to put this right here. By putting this right here, you can see that I can paint it as a brush, but generally this is not preferable. What you want to do is, I'm going to clear this mask and add a paint layer. And I can put this in my stencil, so it's going to show up like this. I'm going to make this white, change my brush to something different, like a basic soft. To change a stencil, you can press S, left click to rotate, middle click to pan, and right click to zoom in and zoom out. Same thing. So I'm going to rotate it something like this maybe, and if I make a stroke now, you can see that it's going to paint using a stencil. Your stencils are really important. You can use them for damaged wood, you can use them for leaks, and all kinds of stuff. You can change the brush size by holding Control and right click left and dragging the mouse left and right. You can see the size is changing right here. Or you can press right click and it will open a menu. The same menu can be found here. It's the same menu. You can change the brush size right here. Or you can change the brush, how it looks, by clicking here. You can change the crosshair, something like this, or a full preview brush. But I'm just gonna select the outline. Okay, the next one is to use stencil with colors. Now this was a black and white image. You can see that when I add a paint layer to a black mask, I can only paint a grayscale image, which is black and white. But what if I wanted to have a color image? So I'm going to delete this layer. I'm going to add a regular paint layer, and in this paint layer I'm going to switch to my stencil. You can see that it opens stencil, but there is no image in the stencil. So I'm going to look for an image. I had this one wrong when I was testing, so I'm going to put this into my base color. I'm going to rotate this, and if I click, I can paint this over. I can go back to my brush mode and you can see that it's painted. Alright, the exact same thing we can do with a fill layer, so I'm going to show you that too. I'm going to remove this layer, and let's say I'm going to create a simple fill layer. I'm going to disable all of these by holding Alt and clicking. It's going to invert the selection. If I drag and drop this image into my base color, you can see that it's all over the place. And if I change to my 2D view, or if I click here to 2D only, you can see that the image is too big, and I only want this image on the front, which is here. So I'm going to press F1 so I can see both. Right now the image is too big. If I hold shift and click, it's going to scale it down properly like a square, but you can see that it's being repeated or tiled. If I come here, I can change this UV wrap from repeat to none. It's going to give me a single image. I can then drag this image and fit it wherever I want, just like this. The benefit again of using a fill layer is I can always come in and change my roughness. See that? So paint layer is not as powerful as using a fill layer. Okay, so now we've seen how to use stencil with a color. Now we can shift to anchor points. Anchor points are what I call a custom user mask. You can make any mask and then reference that mask, and you can use it for all sorts of things like engravings, dust, anything you like. So I'm going to show you some tips. I'm going to go back to my 3D view. If I add a fill layer, I can change it to only to height. If I press Alt and click, it's going to go to height mode only. I'm going to right click. Since this is a fill layer, I can't paint directly on this. You can see it's not paintable. I need to create a paint layer. So I'm going to right click, add a black mask, click here, add a paint layer. Now if I draw something, it's not showing up. This is because I haven't given it any height. Again, the power of using a fill layer is that I can come in and change anytime I want. So let's say I'm going to make this a bit deeper. Or rather, I'm going to just clear the mask and add another paint layer. You can hold control, and if you move the mouse upwards, you can change the hardness of the brush, which you can also see on the right side. Or you can just go to brushes and pick up the basic hard brush, which is the same thing. I'm going to make this small, changing the size. Let's say I'm going to type my name. It's not the best one. But let's say if I wanted to have some metal showing up in these strokes, I can. This is my custom mask that I've drawn. If I want to check my mask, I can hold Alt and click on my mask. I can view my mask, or I can always come here and select it from here. I'm going to press M to go back to my material view. Let's say I want metal, so I'm going to add a new fill layer. I'm going to make it silver again. I'm going to put this to metallic, bit lower roughness. I'm going to add a black mask. And now I want to call that mask. In order to do so, you need an anchor point. So I'm going to drop an anchor point. I'm going to call this my height anchor. I'm going to go back to my new layer, click here, and add a fill layer. And in this fill, I'm going to click my grayscale, switch to anchor points, and I can call my anchor point. This is non-destructive. I can always click here and paint anything I want, right? If I want to break this paint, I can add more layers just below the anchor point, and I can reference those layers. For example, if I want this paint to be broken up, I can click here and go to my filters, use a blur slope filter, and it's gonna break the paint. I'm going to change my divisions to about 100, so it's a bit finer details, like this. And whatever I paint is going to have the same effect. I'm going to go back to my paint, and let's say if I type, I don't know, substance, you see that it has the same effect. The next thing we're going to do is use the same anchor points, but this time in a much nicer way, which is to have dust around some text, some alpha that you have. So we're going to check this one out. Again, I'm going to add a height layer only, and this time I'm going to go outwards with the height. Add a black mask. I can always come into my alphas and select any alpha that I want. I'm going to scale this up, make a stroke. See that? Then I'm going to add another layer above this. I'm going to make it only color, or you can also add roughness. That's up to you. I'm going to make something like this dark. And now I want to have dirt around this wedge. What I can do is reference my mask again. So I'm going to drop in an anchor point like this. I'm just going to call it height anchors. Click here, add a fill layer, and add an anchor point. But this is not the effect that I want. I want the dust to be around the wedge, not on the wedge. In order to do so, I'm going to click here and add in a filter. and I'm gonna add a blur filter. Right now you can see if I increase my blur intensity, if I hold Alt and left click on my mask, I can see the mask. I'm gonna duplicate my fill layer with Control D, or you can right click and choose duplicate, move this above the blur and switch it to subtract, like this. As you can see the halo around this. If I press M to go back to my material view, you can see this not as sharp as I want. I can always come back and add in a levels. I can clamp my output values and it's gonna give me the dirt I was looking for. See that? Now in order to change the dirt is too uniform around the wedge. So if you want to manually remove some of the dirt, you can always add a paint layer, switch to dirt 1, and I'm gonna press X to make this black, and I can remove some of the dirt. This could have been some text. So we're gonna use a stencil to do that. Let's say I wanted to have my name. I'm gonna go back to height, and under this height I'm gonna add a paint layer, move this under my height. I'm gonna select my signature again. I'm gonna put this in my stencil. I'm gonna make this small right here, and I'm gonna change my brush to something hard, I guess. I'm gonna press X to make this white again, and then I can paint it. So you can see that since it was non-destructive, it picked up the dirt. I can always come back and manually remove some of it. Just like this. Or maybe add some of it back. This is another nice way of having a non-destructive layer for dust. The other one I use is a position filter. So that one's also really nice. I'm going to remove all of these layers. For this I'm going to switch to body so you can see that. I'm going to again switch to a nice blue color so everyone can see. I'm not going to go for something strong. I'm going to add a dirt layer again. Like this. You can disable all of these, maybe play with roughness. I'm going to make this rough. Something like this. And in the paint I can make it a little bit lighter. I'm going to right click, add a black mask, and this time I'm going to add a filter. That is so I think it's not a filter, it's a generator. It's a position generator. I'm going to remove this filter. Right now if I alt click my mask, you can see that where there is white there's going to be dirt, and where there's black there isn't going to be any dirt, which is what I want. I want this effect to be inverted, so I'm going to click this to invert this. If I press M, now you can see that it's right here. I can always come and play with my global balance for the dirt to add a bit more breakup in the dirt. I can always add a fill layer. Sorry, not here, under the mask. I'm gonna add in a fill layer, and I'm gonna search for some grunge map. I'm gonna search for Clouds 3, maybe Clouds 3. You can see that it's breaking this up. If I alt click this, you can see this breaking up. I can change this from normal to multiply, and it's gonna mix with the layer below it. I'm gonna change this back so I can have some of my dirt there, and I can always add a paint layer above this. Change my brush to dirt, scale this, and press X to remove some of the dirt. Something like this. Or I can always come back and add in some dirt manually. This is a nice little way of using a position map as a generator to have dust. And another neat little trick that I've picked up from Trigon was to use an HSL filter to change the color. Many people at the start will do is manually add a fill layer, something like this, and they can make this either lighter or darker, and then they're gonna add a black mask, add a fill layer. I'm just gonna go with Clouds 3. I'm gonna increase the tiling, something like this, to have a bit of color variation. The problem with this is that it's not technically not a problem, but it could have been better. Let's say I want to change this color to something like red maybe, and for this I'm gonna have to manually come in and change all of these to red or green or any other color. A better way would be to use a filter. So if I go to my filters, there's a filter called HSL filter. I'm just gonna put this to blue again. I'm gonna use HSL filter above this layer right here. I'm gonna make this darker, just like before. Add a black mask, add a fill layer, the same filler, increase my tiling, increase my contrast. The benefit of using the HSL filter is that if I change the base color, it's gonna update the color with it. Can you see? It's changing the color with this. This is really nice to use an HSL filter instead of a manual layer. I can also change this filter to a metalness. I can add a metalness variation. I can add a roughness variation. This is a neat little trick that I've picked up from Trigon. Alright, another one would be to use a mask. So I'm going to show you two methods of masking. Let's say I wanted to paint some red color over the body, but I don't want to have it bleed over the hands. I'm going to add a red color real quick, add a black mask. Now you can always come in and manually paint this. It's going to be really hard. You may leak some of this on the body. A better way would be to use a polygonal selection. If you click here, you can manually select a triangle, even a single triangle if there is one, like this, to have a pattern. If I press X or switch this, it's going to invert the selection. I can remove the mask. I can go with polygons. Sorry, press X to make this white again. Select polygons, or if I can select a whole mesh, like this. Sometimes your mesh isn't connected. Meshes are connected, but they're separated with seams. So I'm going to switch this to head. I'm going to show you there. Let's say I wanted to select the inside, but selecting the insides like this would be real tricky. If I add a red color quickly, I can switch this to black mask. If I click this, it's gonna select the whole thing, which isn't what I want. I want only the front face. So I'm gonna undo this, go to my projection view, or UV view, sorry. This is the UV, so I can select a UV chunk this time. I'm gonna select a UV chunk and click this. If I press 1 to go back to paint mode, you can see that it only selected the front part. So it's a really nice selection tool. And another one, you can quickly add a mask. Let's say if I wanted to paint a red layer somewhere here, but I don't want it to mess up like something like this. What some people can do is go to their add a paint layer. They're gonna mask it off, or add a white layer and then mask it off, something like this. You know, whatever you paint will show up under this, just like this. But let's say if you wanted a quick temporary mask, what you can do is press Y and it's gonna give you a quick mask. Let's say I'm gonna remove this mask quickly. Clear the mask. Remove mask. Alright, I can press Y. Sorry, Y is going to turn into this. If I press X, I can paint my black mask. Sorry. Just going to quickly add this back. There we go. I can press X, Y, then X. Sorry, I'm just going to do this whole thing again. If I press Y, it's going to turn into this mode. If I press X, it's going to turn into black, and I can paint a temporary black mask, just like this. And if I press U, I can go back to my paint mode and press X to make this white again, and then paint in this inside, something like this. You could have used a stencil, but it was a quick way of creating a custom mask real quick. And if you want to remove this, just press Y and it will go away. So this is a neat little trick I picked up from FlippedNormals. And I think these are all it, I guess. These were the tips and tricks that I knew that have helped me in creating a good materials. So I hope this helped. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll see you around. Bye.